what I think happens when it comes to college football. When you look at programs that are elite and teams that are, in this case, college football playoff contenders and national championship contenders, I'm speaking about the Tennessee Volunteers. I think this is what happens a lot of times. We look at the team and we look at what they are now, and what we don't do is we don't take time to think back to what it is that helped them become what they are right now. We don't look at the past to see where they've been, and we don't look at the actual progression or the steps taken for a program to become what they are right now. And I said this before the season started on this show, and I said if you asked me a dark horse team to not only make the college football playoff but be a national championship contender, it would be Tennessee. And the reason I told you that was defense. Now let me stop there, and now let me go back to what it is that they were and bring you back to this point. So Josh Heupel came in 2021, and it seems as if he's been there for so much longer. But who also came in with Josh Heupel? Tim Banks, who's the current defensive coordinator. Now, this is the conventional wisdom when it comes to Josh Heupel. He was a quarterback at Oklahoma, correct. Won Maxwell Award, won plenty of awards as a quarterback, was a Heisman Trophy candidate, definitely won a national championship, put up a whole lot of gaudy numbers, and then offense under Bob Stoops at Oklahoma. So everybody assumed that Josh Heupel would only have a Tennessee program that was dominant offensively, and that's what they were initially. Tennessee never had a problem spreading you out and never had a problem putting points on the board. But I think there were two misconceptions when it came to Tennessee and ultimately when it came to Josh Heupel. One, Tennessee wants to spread you out because they're not physical. That's a fallacy. It's untrue. Do you remember Auburn under Gus Malzahn and Nick Marshall and Trey Mason and those guys? Do you remember how they would spread you out to only do what? Run the football down to your throat. They were the best rushing team in America, or one of the top 2 or 3 if my memory serves me correctly. It's the same thing with Tennessee. They will spread you out and widen the field so they can run the ball right at you. You saw them play Oklahoma on the road. And this was an ugly game. This was a game where Tennessee showed you that you can put me on a track with you, and we can run track meets up and down the track, 100-meter sprints if you want to, or we can go inside of a phone booth and we can go ahead and knock each other out. Either way, I'm going to be competitive, and either way, I'm probably going to come out on top. See, that's where Tennessee is. So that's one misconception. And the second misconception is that Josh Heupel is only an offensive-minded coach. And see, this is where I say when you have people that lead programs, it has nothing to do with whether they're an offensive-minded or a defensive-minded coach. It's what they surround themselves with, if they understand how to build a program culturally and how to be good in all 3 phases of the game. So in the offseason, Josh Pate, my boy who's also the host of the Josh Pate's college football program on YouTube, he was on this show. And he said when he went to Knoxville and talked to Josh Heupel, he was very, very adamant about them bolstering their defense. And he said they weren't playing about it. And the reason I said that Tennessee would be a dark horse and be a national championship contender is Nico Iamaleava is phenomenal. I told you him getting that start in the bowl game last year when Joe Milton sat out because he was about to get drafted, I think it was the best thing for Nico and ultimately that program. But the fact that defensively they had one of the best front sevens in college football. And this is a team, remember, they had to replace literally everybody in the secondary for this season. And the only thing you can do is see them getting better. I can't look at a defensive stat or a defensive metric that doesn't have Tennessee near the top, whether it's third down percentage conversion for defense, whether it's rushing yards allowed, whether it's passing yards allowed, whether it's red zone defense, whether it's total defense. All of those metrics, Tennessee is not lower than 11. And a lot of them, they're top 5. They're the number 1 team in college football as of right now in total defense. They're number 2 in terms of points per game and scoring defense. So what I'm telling you is don't look at Josh Heupel as an offensive innovator and assume that this program was going to have that kind of identity. They have a smash mouth identity. At the core of who they are, they like to run the football. You know, it's funny because I compare them to the Chiefs of the NFL because you have head coaches in Josh Heupel and Andy Reid whom are both gifted offensively, who scheme up things, put their players in position to be successful. They do things that a lot of people haven't done and don't know how to combat defensively. But what did Kansas City do seemingly almost overnight? They transitioned to a team who last year was second in scoring defense, which helped them win their second straight Super Bowl in third in 4 or 5 years. Tennessee looks like that team. They've got weapons on the outside for Nico, who's young, who's innovative. And listen, as much as I told you Tennessee's been great defensively, you know what they haven't been great at this year? Turnover margin. They're not even top 50 in turnover margin. Imagine when Tennessee actually is able to widen their margin of error because that defense starts forcing turnovers. Or Nico takes a little bit better care of the ball in terms of fumbling. Hasn't been throwing a lot of interceptions, but has put the ball on the ground a little bit. This is a team that is not only playing well, but still has upside. That's what should scare you if you're the SEC and if you're the rest of college football. Now listen, I expect Tennessee to drop a game this year. They may even drop 2 games this year. Right? Just being in this conference, you never know what a road game will mean. You never know. You might just play an early game and slip up. It happens. Teams are too good. However, I fully expect this team, I don't care if they win the SEC and get a top 4 seed or if they're the 10th or 11th seed. Matchup-wise, they present a lot of problems to people in college football. And because of that, Tennessee is rightfully where they should be. But when you celebrate the Volunteers, make sure that you take a look back to where they came from and how they made the conscious decision in hiring Josh Heupel, and Josh Heupel made the conscious decision to make sure that this team was formidable on both sides of the football. Did you not see USC and Lincoln Riley lose to Michigan because Michigan literally ran every single play for positive yards down their throat in the final drive when USC knew Michigan was going to run the ball and couldn't stop it? Michigan ran for over 300 yards against USC. That's been Lincoln Riley's problem as a head coach. The offense has always been phenomenal, but the defense has lacked. That's not the problem with Tennessee anymore, and I don't see it changing.